everyone. On behalf of the International Dialogue Center KAICIID, headquartered in Austria, Europe, I'd like to welcome all the panelists, all the invited panelists, and also all participants. In dialogue, it's always more important to listen than to talk. This is a message that I've learned from my indigenous brothers and sisters. Today, I hope to learn more about the intercultural dialogue, which is an urgent need given climate change. And in Moa, I'll tell you miigwech, which is thank you and all the best for today.
Brothers and sisters, on behalf of 1,064 member organizations of United Religions Initiative, URI, known as Cooperation Circle, who are from diverse religions, spiritual expressions, and indigenous traditions from 110 countries, I present you greetings of peace, blessing, and best wishes. At the outset, I want to thank UCV, KAICIID, and URI Office for Latin American and Caribbean region for organizing this timely and important meeting under the theme of Mother Earth, Sustainability and Contribution of Interreligious Dialogue, focusing on the topic of interreligious and intercultural dialogue and its role in protecting the environment, sustainability as alternative for planetary survival, the indigenous worldview and its sacred connection with Mother Earth, interculturality as a window to reciprocal action. My special thanks and gratitude goes to my dear sister and colleague, Professor Enoe Texier, coordinator of the doctorate in social science at UCV and coordinator of URI for Latin American and Caribbean region, for taking the initiative and spearheading this meeting. I do believe that this meeting will help us to understand the interdependence between human beings and nature. It also helps us to celebrate our cultural and religious diversity and work together for common good in preserving Mother Earth, which sustain our life. All our faith traditions call us to be stewards of the earth, as the earth is a gift from the divine. United Religion Initiative and UN Environment Program share common goals with respect to the conservation, protection, and support of nature, the environment, and natural resource. Because of these common goals, the two entities signed a memorandum of understanding to promote those objectives. I'm also happy to inform you that URI strongly welcome and support the Faith for Earth initiative of UNEP, with the goal which is to inspire and empower faith organizations and the leaders and the indigenous people to advocate for protecting the environment, to green faith-based organizations' investments and assets, to support the implementation of the Sustainable Development Goals, and to provide them with knowledge and networks to enable their leaders to effectively communicate with decision makers and the public at large. Dear sisters and brothers, with just 10 years to go to realize the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal by 2030, It is important that ever to engage young people in efforts to reach the goals. Encouraging the youth to become good stewards of the earth will be critical in achieving the goals. We see good engagement and information with respect to UNEP sensitization effort directed at university level youth. As you know, we are endangering life on Earth with dangerous levels of greenhouse gas emissions. These gases are destabilizing the global climate system, heating the Earth, acidifying the oceans, and putting both humanity and all living creatures at an acceptable risk. As it is highlighted by UNEP, healthy environment is the foundation of human life, but we are putting the planet under enormous pressure by depleting the Earth's natural resources, polluting its air and water, destabilizing the climate and driving many of its species to extinction. Therefore, faith-based organizations can play a significant role at the global, regional, and local level in engaging and impacting communities and can significantly address climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, desertification, and unsustainable land and water use by fostering a fundamental change in the attitude of the majority of people. They can do so through their own institutions and communities and through cooperation with other cultures, belief, and value systems. Therefore, more than ever, indigenous people, religious leaders, faith-based and interfaith organizations need to work in close partnership with the United Nations Environment Programme and other like-minded organizations on the issue of environmental protection, climate change, and addressing the problem of air pollution and supporting the effort for practical solution and to preserve Mother Earth. All the religions of the world have traditionally expressed ethical concern for the environment in what is called now the Green Rule. And we have also the same principle in the traditional faith, culture. They have accorded moral significance to other creatures and proposed ethical responsibilities. The world's religions have understood the earth to have some kind of religious significance or religious value, and that humans have religious obligation to care for its creatures. These shared ethical concerns are found in historical teachings, selected from many of the world's great religious texts and spiritual teaching, secular tradition. The Green Rule was chosen to demonstrate that each religion and spiritual philosophy has a long-standing tradition of ecological stewardship. Inspired by the Golden Rule, the Green Rule draws on scriptures from different religions to advocate environmental protection as a universal principle based on the message of the Green Rule, which says, I quote, "Do unto the earth as you would have it do unto you," end of quote. Finally, I want to say that we all need to work together in team spirit, in partnership, as citizens of this world to create a better future for this generation and generation yet to come. We need to accept the reality of the common danger our world faces, and all of us need to take practical action. May peace and Green Rule prevail on earth. Wish you all the best. Thank you.
Greetings to you all, and thank you for being present for another wonderful opportunity created by the KAICIID organization and community. My name is Reverend Lauren Van Ham. I serve as Climate Action Coordinator for the United Religions Initiative, or URI. And as partners with KAICIID, it is my joy to join you today from Ohlone Territory and the Baxter Creek watershed, known to some as Richmond, California, in the United States. Theologian Rosemary Radford Ruther has described her work in the field of ecofeminism to be about the healing that needs to happen between women and our bodies, our physical body, each other's bodies, and the body of the earth. In essence, she has said that humanity will care for Earth only as well as it cares for women. And Vandana Shiva, beloved philosopher and food sovereignty advocate, speaks of our current moment with these words: "We are either going to have a future where women lead the way to make peace with the earth, or we are not going to have a human future at all." Imagine my delight when I was invited to offer words of welcome for this vibrant and powerful KAICIID dialogue at a critical moment today. We are gathered here, a group of women, scholars, scientists, lawyers, and yes, Indigenous wisdom keepers. Together, in conversations like this one, we are being asked to listen for the ancient and the future, informing one another and providing a rooted and intelligent way forward. Our new way welcomes and includes all of this: the old and proven ways of land tenure, water protection, and fire keeping, combined with new angles of advocacy, reformed governance, and decolonized practice of community resilience. Together we can do this, and women bring the heart capacity to hear. We hear through the noise, and we uplift the longing and love that resides in each one of us, no matter how seduced we may have gotten by the dominant system. Thank you for your presence here today, truly. And thank you, esteemed panelists, for bringing your heart, your ideas, your willingness to model necessary changes, and most of all, your fierce grace to collaborate across disciplines, cultures, and beliefs, so that we can create a world where all beings, humans and other than human, might flourish in peace and abundance. Blessings on this gathering today.
Anoy, the floor is yours.
Hello. We will listen to the Dean of the University of the Central Venezuelan University. Good morning, dear friends. My name is Dr. Angel Gonzalez, an anthropologist, Dean of the Faculty of Economic and Social Sciences of the Central University of Venezuela. I'm pleased to welcome the virtual but equally close presence of all us who have gathered this morning to enjoy this space of reflective discussion on Mother Earth in the light of an interesting feedback between ancestral sacred knowledge and scientific knowledge. Now, regarding anthropology, these topics are part of many of the lines of research of our specialists. So without a doubt, this meeting is a valuable opportunity to learn about and spread ideas that are so necessary in such difficult times as those that humanity is living today, when the very survival of our species is at stake. Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Reyes. Could you please get closer to the microphone or speak up so that the interpreters can hear you because your microphone is set very low? Can they hear me now? Yes, very much better. Thank you very much. I'm sorry for the interruption. And I said that for the anthropology, these topics are part of many lines of research of us specialists. So without a doubt, this meeting is a valuable opportunity to learn about and spread ideas that are so necessary in such difficult times as those that humanity is living today, when the very survival of our species is at stake. Rest assured that the University Central de Venezuela, and especially our faculty, will always welcome you, because we recognize that respect and the appreciation of differences will allow us to transcend our difficulties. Dialogue is the fundamental mechanism for this hard but interesting undertaking. Thank you very much for your kindness you have had in inviting me to greet on behalf of all the faculty members, the community, all those attending this meeting. I wish you a lot of success. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for accompanying us today.
So these were all the welcoming addresses. Thanks to everybody that have been with us in this opening. I'd like to greet everybody that's here with us today in this roundtable. I would like to express my acknowledgement to the Center for Interreligious Studies, KAICIID, for the wonderful educational work they carry out in the field of training in interreligious dialogue, with the goal being to build a culture of peace in the world. In order to guide something that we need today, societies, so that they can coexist peacefully as an achievement of the third millennium of human history. My special thanks go to Pratius Prodeur, who is with us here, KAICIID Senior Advisor, for accompanying me in preparing this event. Thank you, Patrice, for being with us. Armen Prostomoyan, Senior Program Manager of the KAICIID Dialogue Knowledge Hub. We have been in touch for several years already in order to strengthen the cooperation links between our institutions, the Central University of Venezuela and URI and KAICIID. Anya Biscour, Program Manager and Virtual Platform Mapping of the DKH, who has been my great ally, responsible for all the logistics and instrumentation of this roundtable, making it possible so we can all be here today. I'd also like to thank the ones that are given the welcoming addresses, Dean, and particularly people from Spain that had to, and people that are here with us today from Latin America that had to overcome this unstable internet connections situation that we're suffering, not only in Venezuela, and everybody that's out of the big cities. And they all made a great effort and prepared excellent contributions to this event. To begin with, I'd like to introduce some ideas that I hope that will be helpful in this exchange of ideas and reflections. And I will try to share a few slides with you to focus our reflections more. So I usually have an assistant helping me with showing the slides. To do this part is I'm usually helped with. I just want to say that the theme Mother Earth, Sustainability and Contribution of Intercultural Dialogue was inspired by one of my lines of research for my PhD in social sciences at the Central University of Venezuela, with the title being Interreligious and Intercultural Dialogue for a Culture of Peace. And the general objective of this research line was to promote and develop intercultural and religious dialogue, as well as alternatives for peace education, connecting university with society in order to achieve a transition from a culture of war to a culture of peace, starting from awareness raising and also the transmission of tools for dialogue, negotiation, and agreements. Also training in ethics and values, also protection and defense of human rights, interreligious dialogue, appreciation of the ancestral, indigenous, and native legacy, and the acknowledgement of cultural diversity, personal and social well-being, and respectful coexistence with the living beings of the earth. So, and this is what we are offering here also as a degree here at our university. And thanks for having given us the possibility to work into this direction. So why focus on intercultural dialogue here? The way I see it is that interreligious and intercultural dialogue go hand in hand. So they coexist. So they define us. We are relational beings. Relationships are the essential form of our human existence. So I don't exist before the relationship. It requires a we, so a shared experience can be built. In my pilgrimage along the path of life and in my personal research, since I started as a student of anthropology, I have been coming closer to the knowledge of extra-Western societies and the native ancestral peoples of America. I think that the great challenge for humanity today is the transition from a culture of war, imposition, and domination to a culture of peace and reconciliation. It is necessary to change the minds of human beings. For many, many years, I've been working in my educational work on something that is inspired on what we all have in mind when we think about war. So it's always something, it's a choice that we make. And based on that, education is very much focused on this culture of peace, because we need new attitudes, new abilities, and new behaviors to achieve this very desired peace. What always working towards peace, this is also what URI stands for. Advances in technology have led to greater movement of people between countries. And this has shown the level of, sometimes unconscious level of discrimination with certain groups. This shows how important the effort is to understand others and to educate for intercultural dialogue. We need a new kind of dialogue based on respect. It can't be any kind of dialogue. I've very much worked on this, and I'm firmly convinced that we have to get to deeper levels of human beings, and it's something that we can't just convey through simple words, but it has to come from real experiences, from this lived reality. I also believe that friendship and trust are nurtured through a commitment to a genuine process of dialogue and exchange. What for? Always for our common good. we always hear that every life is sacred, and that's something that should be our slogan. And if everybody stuck to that, it would be easier. We need exchange based on reciprocity. With my students, I very much work on this. It is important to know that we have a vision that we bring to the world, and that we have judgments that are already previous to a reality. So we have to choose out of this range of visions. And the German philosopher Gadama speaks about this very clearly. It's something that we need in front of the others. We have to open oneself to the other. We have to listen. That's very important. It's a passive process. But of course, you listen, and then your mind just goes on, is very much awake. So we have to listen and also incorporate new understanding and widen our horizons, this fusion of horizons. What for? Because we need this new vision, but not just to have this new vision, but we want to extend the meaning. We want to open up to understand what the meaning of something that we hear can be, and that we can incorporate it in our lives for the common good. This has to be a sincere exchange, and also recognize unity and diversity in life. Involve ourselves from our hearts, because we think that we can learn from the others. The common goal is to find well-being and happiness for everyone on this earth. I think that our souls are drops of the infinite spirit, which incarnate while being in this world to evolve and to overcome that finitude. That's a path for that is to understand the otherness and understand all the living beings, not just human beings, all the other living beings. Indigenous societies, ancestral societies, and communities have always been very much aware of this. So this is a milestone, a vital milestone in our life experience. So it's an invitation to go beyond what we see. And we have to question ourselves about our lives. What is our life for? How can we respect each other? And how can we love all living beings, respecting Mother Earth, and also respecting the heritage? I think we have to spread the wings of our creative intelligence to give us courage. And I will be speaking a lot about this next week. So we have the potential, we have intelligence, and we have to build and co-build, because actually we're co-creators, to find the value in ourselves and to express esteem for our dignity, build our freedom, and of course include our sacred dimension. Many, many years ago, we thought, would the 21st century be sacred or not? With this introduction, I want to thank all the wonderful people that are here with us today. They're from Venezuela, Mexico, Chile, and Argentina. Very valuable personalities that are here to nurture us and to help us progress even further. to help us to become even better persons on this Mother Earth. Given the difficulty we have in all over Latin America, particularly Venezuela, with internet connection, we decided to record the videos of the panelists beforehand, the ones that would have bad internet connection, and have them here live. So for your Q&A afterwards, Mexico doesn't have this problem. So Raquel Gutierrez Nájera will speak live, and we'll hear 2 videos by Maria del Pilar Quintero and then by Sofia Painiqueo, and also by Yelisa Rangel and Raul, who is also a global trustee of URI. And then they will be with us for Q&A. So they will be very happy to answer all the questions you have. So now we start with Dr. Raquel Gutierrez Nájera. Raquel Gutierrez Nájera, wonderful friend. We have been already sharing a lot of years together, research professor, holding the chair of environmental law, and member of the academic board for PhD in law of the University of Guadalajara, Mexico. She is social advisor of the coordinating committee for the evaluation of national climate change policy 2015 to 2024. She will be holding this position until 24. Raquel, you've got the floor.
Thank you very much to all of you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you to Yuri, to KAICIID, and everybody who's taking part in this event. Let me just give you a few reflections on what we are sharing, and I hope that I can contribute in this reflection of what we're having ahead of us, despite this pandemic. I'd like to share a text with you regarding the sustainability as an alternative to survival on this planet. Says that the pandemic, like the one we are living today with its acronym COVID-19, leads us to reflect on the vulnerability of the human species, as well as making visible to us a world that is fragmented and degraded in economic, social, and environmental terms. Now, in this context, I think that rethinking this new normality or reality that we're experiencing also leads us to rethink our relationship with our natural environment in order to ask ourselves if sustainable development continues to represent an alternative for the survival of the planet and the survival of all forms of life, including human life. Now, in this context, I'd like to mention some data that we got from sources. And there are some quotes from a global context. Now, the UN's Global Environment Outlook Geo report addresses the state of the planet's natural resources, and I quote, "Since the report was first published, the overall state of the environment has continued to deteriorate worldwide, despite environmental policy efforts in all countries and regions." Now, the above statement is supported by the fact that the report stipulates regarding the air. In all the world, anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases of CO2 have increased worldwide. Now, regarding biological diversity, the species populations are declining and species extinction rates are increasing. As an example, 42% of terrestrial, 34% of freshwater, and 25% of marine invertebrates are at risk of extinction. And 60% of vertebrate populations have declined. And there is also an increase in invasive species and a dramatic decrease in pollinators. Regarding oceans and coasts, the degradation and loss of marine ecosystems, including the death of coral reefs, reduction of marine resources, trash in the oceans, loss of food chains, among others, are threats to a common good of humanity. Now let's talk about land and soil. Approximately 29% of the world's land is degraded, and 32 billion people live on it. Deforestation continues to advance, as do urban agglomerations, which in 2015 accounted for 7.6% of the world's land surface. Freshwater. The water cycle is changing. Today we see floods, droughts, melting glaciers that affect the availability and quality of fresh water, which is available for the human species and to the ecosystem of Mother Nature. Now, similarly, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, IPCC, also warns about the impacts of climate change and the model of economic development based on the planet's fossil resources, and like the UN report, concludes that the unsustainable anthropogenic activities carried out around the world have degraded the Earth's ecosystems and have undermined the ecological foundations of society. Indeed, the accelerated changes in climate and global degradation have taken place mainly in parts of the 19th and 20th centuries over a period of almost 50 years. And this also gives us an idea about the speed of the process. Similarly, they reveal the unsustainable use of the planet's natural resources and the vulnerability of all forms of life, including man. The solution that prevails in the global consensus is to change the economic development paradigm of unlimited use of natural resources and waste in order to embrace sustainable development. However, the consensus has not been sufficient since it follows the predominance of the economy over the natural and human environment. The KAICIID, since the first meeting on human rights and the environment in 1972 in the 1987 Brundtland report entitled Our Common Future, the Earth Summit in Rio de Janeiro in 1992, the signing of multiple multilateral treaties on human rights and the environment, the objectives of sustainable development, the opinions of religious leaders such as Pope Francis with his encyclical Laudato Si, and the recent one on fraternity and social friendship. The voice of indigenous peoples in various world meetings warning about the rights of Mother Earth lead us to conclude that there is a global consensus that has revolved around sustainable development as a way to preserve our planet and all forms of life existing on it. Sustainable development has been defined as the following: that which allows present needs to be met without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their needs. Along the same lines, three interdependent dimensions are recognized: the environmental, the social, and the economic. Despite the fact that sustainability as an alternative for planetary survival has been a consensus, how can we as humans explain the inability or failure of its implementation? Now, something is not going right. Sustainable development undoubtedly continues to be a global consensus, but its implementation and economic, social, and human realization have lagged far behind. Today, our common home, Mother Earth, gives us the opportunity to lay the foundations for a model of sustainability based on intercultural and intergenerational dialogue and the prevalence of the common goods of humanity over private property and profit. Let me end by paraphrasing Pope Francis. The principle of the subordination of private property to the universal destination of goods, and therefore the universal right to their use, must be the foundation of all ethical and social systems. Humanity, without any doubt, will tell us more in the future. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thanks, dear Raquel, for your contribution on ethics. We have here with us, even though we'll just be listening to the video first, Professor Maria del Pilar Quintero, Professor and Coordinator of the Research Group on Social Consciousness in Venezuela and Latin America at the Faculty of Humanities and Education of the University of the Andes. Maria del Pilar is here with us. I can't see her at the moment, but she's with us.
La relación seres humanos
The
naturaleza.
relationship between human beings and nature.
María del Pilar Quintero Montilla.
María del
En
Pilar
nuestro
Quintero
grupo de
Montilla.
investigación sobre la formación
In
de la
our
conciencia
research
social
group on social
en América
consciousness
Latina,
in Venezuela and Latin
asumimos que la
America,
humanidad debe
we
revisar
assume
su
that
paradigma
humanity must
dominante en la
review its
relación de los
dominant
seres humanos con
paradigm
la
in the
naturaleza.
relationship of human beings with
Tal como lo
nature.
destacan numerosas
This has been
individualidades,
stressed by many individual and scientific,
culturales,
religious, cultural, and ethnic associations in the
como lo
world, and has
vienen
been said
diciendo
for
hace
centuries,
siglos los voceros de
also
las
by the
comunidades y pueblos
spokespersons of the
indígenas.
indigenous communities and peoples of the earth.
Relación seres humanos naturaleza desde
Relationship between human beings and nature from
la
an
relación
intercultural
seres humanos
perspective.
naturaleza se define,
The
se
relationship between human beings and nature is defined, built, internalized by the prevailing worldview of a society and given culture.
a la
In
cosmovisión
turn,
latina
the worldview
conforma
is
una
defined and
mitología,
shaped by a
una filosofía,
mythology, a
una tradición
philosophy, a
espiritual o
spiritual
una
tradition
religión
or
que se
religion,
constituye
which
en un
consists of a
pensamiento hegemónico en una
hegemonic way
determinada
of
sociedad o
hegemonic
conjunto de
way of
sociedades
thinking in a given
hasta
society
conformar
or
una
set of societies
macrocultura o
until a
una
macro
civilización.
culture or
La
civilization is
relación
formed.
seres humanos
The
naturaleza
relationship
constituye uno
between
de los
human beings and
aspectos
nature is one of the
fundamentales en la
fundamental aspects in building and
conformación de
shaping a
una cultura
culture
y
and
su
its
relación
relationship
con el
with the
entorno
geographical,
geográfico,
cosmic,
cósmico
and
y
human
humano
environment in
en general.
general.
Las características de
The
esta relación
characteristics of this
serán
relationship
importantes
will be
en la
decisive
producción
in
de
the
bienes
production
para la
system of
satisfacción de
goods for
necesidades,
satisfying
en su
basic needs,
lenguaje,
in
en
its
su arte,
language, in
en
its
todas sus
arts, in
prácticas
all
sociales
its
y
social and
culturales,
cultural
y en la
practices, and in
preservación
the
y
preservation
destrucción del medio
or
ambiente.
destruction of the
La
environment.
concepción de la relación
The
seres humanos
concept of
naturaleza
relationship between
constituye
human
también
beings
la
and
base
nature
de un
also is the
sistema de
basis of a system of thought
un sistema de concebir
a
el
system of
mundo y el
conceiving the
cosmos.
world and the
Se manifiesta
cosmos, and it
psíquica y
manifests itself
emocionalmente de manera
psychologically and objectively in
de
a conscious,
conciencia e
pre-conscious,
inconsciente.
and
Se
unconscious way.
internaliza desde
It is
temprana edad.
internalized
Se
from an
transmite
early age. It is transmitted
transgeneracionalmente en la familia,
cross-generationally
la
within the
comunidad, todas
family,
las
the
formas
community, and all
organizacionales
existing forms of social
tales como
organizations such as
escuelas,
schools,
universidades, grupos de
universities,
trabajo,
working
grupos
groups,
religiosos, comunidades
religious
étnicas,
groups, ethnic
grupos
communities,
profesionales,
professional
etc.
bodies, etc.
Se puede decir que la
It
manera
can
como
be
se
said that the way in which the relationship between human beings and nature is set up, defined, represented, and practiced is a cultural matrix
más profundo de
and the
las
deepest
necesidades.
substratum.
Esta matriz cultural, tal como
The
expusimos
video
tiene su origen
in
en ideas
Spanish cannot be
pensantes,
heard very well, says Inoetics here.
religiones y filosofías, las tradiciones espirituales, que están
We
en los
can't
basamentos
really hear the
modernos.
video.
Cuando estas ideas se expanden y se hacen hegemónicas, se constituyen en una explicación primaria.
The video has been stopped as the transmission wasn't good. Sorry for having interrupted, but we couldn't really hear very well the video. So we have Maria del Pilar Quintero with us. Apparently she has lost connection with us. Yeah, unfortunately, she is not with us anymore. But the video, actually, we can't really follow the audio. Maybe we could, because actually, in the second half of the 19th century, the pioneering work of anthropology produced a great transformation in the way Western civilization understood the world. Western civilization, with its technological development, had colonized the planet since the 16th century through armed, linguistic, and religious means. It was assumed that it was the owner of culture for which its colonial undertakings were justified. It was then that anthropological studies showed that there were other forms of human organization, production of shared symbols that belong to other cultures, which have to be understood and defined as such. Thus, a paradigm shift took place, which was very hard to come to terms with for the dominant culture. Western culture thus losing its condition as the axis of the world. One speaks then of cultural exchanges, cultural borrowings, transculturation, cultural alienation, cultural colonialism, in order to define different social and political situations that arise in human exchanges between people and groups of people from different cultures. The first approach to the notion of interculturality. In contemporary times, some studies carried out by anthropology, ethnolinguistics, social cultural psychology, cultural history, and the sociology of religions, as well as communications, travel, and migrations, are allowing us to get to know different cultures and worldviews and to approach them in an experimental and respectful way, not only as researchers, but as human beings, humble inhabitants of planet Earth, trained in other systems of cultural symbols and practices. This form of interaction has been defined as interculturality, cultural diversity, and human-nature relations. However, the relationship with cultural and religious diversity has undergone many transformations, from total intolerance that has produced many tragic wars to a process of recognition and acceptance of this diversity in Western countries and in some Eastern countries, such as Japan. It is enshrined in human rights, the right to cultural diversity and religious freedom. However, intolerance to cultural and religious diversity is still present in many places on Earth, giving rise to many forms of ethnocentrism and xenophobia. Also, in our Latin American countries and throughout the world, some ethnic or religious communities practice intolerance to diversity, stimulating contempt for differences, especially for objects of worship and ceremonies. There are still negative stereotypes, prejudices, stigma symbols, and ignorance about the indigenous worldview and its carriers. Intercultural education offers a possibility for the recognition of cultural diversity. Cultural diversity and human-nature relations through interculturality. An approach from an intercultural perspective to contemporary society and the great current civilizations allow us to encounter different worldviews that in one way or another coexist in society, and sometimes even within the same person. Sometimes these worldviews contain opposite visions and practices in the relationship human beings nature. I will only mention 3 worldviews in a very short and simple way. Following the thesis of the historian Arnold Toynbee, that religion is the basis and foundation of civilizations, I will focus on the approach to its founding myths and religious beliefs and philosophies. On the one hand, the Western worldview, the indigenous worldview, third, the Eastern worldview. These 3 worldviews each have different origins and made up of converging ancestral knowledge that, beyond its diverse aspects and cultural expressions, deep down contains a unitary thought that characterizes, specifies, and differentiates them. And this becomes evident in a relevant and definite manner by the way the relationship between human beings and nature in each one of them is conceived, defined, and practiced. Considerations and proposals. Contemporary civilization tend to be more or less influenced by the Western worldview and its dominant paradigm of the human-nature relationship described before. This has given rise to the expansion of a reifying way of reasoning that perceives everything that exists as object, as things to be manipulated at the convenience of the economic interests of the dominant social sectors. This has contributed enormously to the environmental crisis that humanity is suffering. And we consider a change in education necessary in order to become aware of this planetary situation, to transform this reifying reason and to produce changes in social awareness and practice. The reifying way of reasoning leads to an impoverishment of sensitivity, thought, motivation to learn, creativity, and affection, and a repression of spirituality, because the world is perceived as an impoverished, inert reality, lacking beauty and mystery, a form of alienation, of estrangement, of disaffection, with regard to the wonders that life, human relationships, nature reveals us daily. It also leads to an impoverishment of our potential to know, appreciate, care, love, and enjoy. It is replaced by possessing things, accumulating, and it nurtures addictions of different kind by the extension and symbolic emptiness. We propose an education program based on and guided by these reflections. Proposals for social change in the human-nature relationship. The culture of peace paradigm, proclaimed by UNESCO in 1984, proposes 4 fundamental cornerstones for building an active culture of peace. 1, peace with oneself. 2, peace with others. 3, peace between nations. 4, peace with nature. Agreeing with all of this, we propose an intercultural education program on human-nature relations in 3 different worldviews of the Earth. It will be developed in designs appropriate for formal, non-formal, and informal education, accompanied by geographical exhibitions, philosophical and literary texts, descriptions of customs, traditions, languages, myths, stories, songs, poetry, images, videos, films, and different artistic manifestations. In order to broaden the population's understanding of these human behaviors, these different cultural manifestations in the 3 worldviews. And this way, it will contribute to developing the dimension of spirituality, ethical awareness, aesthetic awareness, and awareness of the sacred. We have researched, compiled, and created valuable education materials for this education project. A series of essays and articles and books, a corpus of tales and chronicles of 32 stories, a 13-chapter animated television series for children by filmmaker Jose Velasco, aimed at protecting nature. Also, a corpus of stories about the protectors of nature in Indian mythology, a corpus of poetry dedicated to nature, and so on. We need resources for the appropriate editing for these materials for mass distribution. We would like to end the speech with a few words from the Mexican philosopher Juliana Gonzalez Valenzuela, a great scholar of ethics and contemporary science, in her book, Human Genome and Human Dignity. I quote, "For me, hope lies in the vital force of the counterpower that human values and rights represent. It is pinned on the primary momentum of men and women to persevere in their own humanity. It is placed in that poetic act of faith that guides Hölderlin when he announces, 'But where the danger is, also grows the saving power.'" End of quote. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Pilar, and a friend of mine. We have known each other for many years. We have gone to a university together and we have made projects together at the University of the Andes in Venezuela. And as I said, we need resources. Without resources, we cannot do good work, and we need material and experiences which need to be disseminated in order to reach a different interinstitutional reality at our universities, which are the important centers for resources in order to change the way we are living. And so we have been doing a lot of work there, and we have gathered a lot of material, and we are continuing to converse with our friends from KAICIID and people all around the world. Now I will now present my beloved sister, Sofia Painikeo. She is here with us, but she lives in the south of Chile. And we're going to present a video, play a video, but she will be with us in order to answer your questions. She is a Mapuche from the Mapuche tribe, former global trustees of URI, first representative of the URI Afilai Corporation Circle in Temuco, Chile, and chair of the Raymen Pinoteta de Lumaco community. And we will listen to your video. Thank you for being with us here. Hello, I'm going to speak about life, the lives that the indigenous people lead on the earth, in the soil, and the habitat, and I will speak about the connection that we have with our environment, the connection with biodiversity. We human beings are brothers and sisters of all the diversity of life which exists in nature. We are just another being which inhabits some space of the great mother nature. We have inherited this vision from our grandparents, from our ancestors, because they knew how to connect with all their older and younger brothers and sisters. The Mapuche people, in particular, in their own habitat, have their own way of acting, of connecting through their mother tongue from their space, from their habitat, in order to be able to communicate with the world around us, in order to be able to seek balance, harmony with other living beings. And how do we seek this balance, this harmony? By sharing in the countryside, in the habitat itself, in the middle of nature, where there are no fences, where there are no enclosures, where nothing lacks, in a space where the most important things for life exist, just like the living beings living in the water, in the air, in the soil. We live on the ground. This is the space that we were given to live in. But we're not the only ones who need to eat, feed ourselves. We also need to walk, we need to breathe, and we have to exchange knowledge and experiences. There are also other beings who have more strength, more energy, more experience than we do. These beings know about the natural order, and it is with them that we need to interact with our spirituality by sharing food, dances, conversations, speeches, and instruments. And this sharing is done with the help of our spirituality. And we notice immediately when there is reciprocity of energies with other beings. When there is reciprocity with other beings, it is immediately noticed. Those other beings are everything that you can see, everything that you can feel, everything that is in nature itself from what it is in the Minchemapu. This is how we call the land underneath, what is in the space and the constellation. There are living beings there all around us, and it is with them that we have to be well, right? To be well in the sense of being healthy in order to have what is necessary for each living being. And what is necessary for each one is its nourishment and its healthy life. They do have the power, the strength, the energy in order to select their food. What we human beings do not have, only what nature gives us in the environments where we live. And when we Mapuche sow, that's why we have to talk to nature. That's why we have to talk with the environment so that everyone cooperates with the growth of our food that we need to live, like corn, potatoes, barley, beans, everything that comes from Mother Nature is our food. I would say that everything, in a way, it's for everyone, but we have some things which are attainable and some foods that we know and can consume. Because there are other foods that other living beings consume, and that has to be respected. We must keep and have a balance, a harmony with our brothers and sisters in order to be able to live in peace. Well, maybe not exactly in peace, but with respect, with equal rights. This is why, for native peoples, it is so important to be part of this great nature and to take care of it. take care of it in order not to destroy it, not to devastate its strength. Unfortunately, us humans, we devastate its strength by cutting down trees, polluting water, polluting the air, leaving trash everywhere. And in this way, through pollution, we kill other younger, older brothers and sisters. The earth must be loved. The earth must be respected, just like I respect myself as a human being who believes that there ought to not to be any intervention in his or her body because we can die when we're treated badly. That's the way of our Mother Earth. This is why we defend her. We love her. We need her. Every single living being needs her in his or her body. Thank you very much. Dear Sister Sophia, thank you very much. I have learned so much with you. Sophia is here also to answer questions later. And despite all her virtues, um, we need to talk to her later because this is important. I have learned a lot from indigenous peoples in the course of my life. From an ecological point of view, we know about the flowers and the ecosystem, which is very difficult to maintain. It's very sensitive. We need to respect it, as has said our sister Sophia. Oh, not only with our mind, but also with our heart and with reciprocity, as we have heard. We're going to continue now. And I'd like to say thank you, sister, for um, your lecture. We're now continue with Yelitza Rangel. Yelitza Rangel is an indigenous Quinaro from the Venezuelan Andes. She was an assistant to her grandfather when she was a child, and she wanted to be a shaman, but the grandparents said, no, you should go and study. And so she went to the University of the Andes to study biology. And she worked on the environment, and she's the first representative of the Trujillo University, and she has done a lot of good work in preservation of nature, of water, because there's been a lot of deterioration there, and she has made herself also an advocate of interculturality, just like Maria de Pilar, in order to revitalize environments. And Yelitza Rangel, we also have a video here. Unfortunately, we could not connect her immediately because there is a lack of electricity. There's in the Andes, but we have her video here. Thanks to the URI office, so that you can listen and watch the video and nourish on the knowledge of our sister. So I will start now playing Yelitza's video. Hello, this is Raquel from the University of the Andes, from the nucleus of Rafael in Trujillo in Venezuela. My own cultural experiences. I am a Kinaroa people, which means peaceful people, and we worship the Pandia Mahaliatas bird. Our ancestors believed that this bird brought news from the other side of the mountains and the sea, and when it flies back, it will take our knowledge to the people on the other side. We have also listened to my grandfathers, and I wanted to work with them. I have always kept a relationship with nature with my grandfathers. However, they said I should study, and I went to study in other areas, and I actually studied at the science faculty. And the good relationships that I can maintain with adults and children, with young people, teachers, and other student leaders have made me set out conserving the university forest of the Rafael Rangel nucleus of the University of the Andes. You may ask yourself, how do I motivate students to join the conservation of forests of Trujillo State? I always start my first class by asking students why they think of Venezuela as a magical place. Is Venezuela a mega diverse country? Yes, it is. Why is Trujillo one of the most important states in terms of biodiversity, but little studies? I ask them what they think of Trujillo, and in order to love something, you have to know it. So I usually talk about biological diversity, which is a term used to describe not only the number of living organisms, but also their variety and variability. Biodiversity also includes the interactions between different forms of life that give rise to complex interactive systems such as ecosystems. In short, biodiversity is the total variety of life on Earth and includes all the genes, species, ecosystems, and ecological processes of which they are a part. There are 60% of species, endemic species, there in a very small place. Endemic species are species which only occur in some areas and not in others. Some are cacti, for example, or birds or other species. Venezuela is among the first 10 countries in the world regarding biodiversity. It is interesting to look at us as fourth amphibian country, sixth birds, and also lots of mammals and reptiles are found in our area. So it is important to speak about the tropical Andes as well as a priority terrestrial ecoregion or hotspot with the greatest wealth and diversity on the planet. If we look at these maps, you see fringes in red, and within these there are environments as the neotropical dry forests. They stand out because they're considered to be a bioregion with a rich biodiversity, and they form part of the country's main centers of endemism. In Trujillo, there are only fragments of forests. In other parts, forests have been cut down a lot due to agriculture, and there only remain control species in some areas. We have seen that Venezuela is a mega diverse country and a priority terrestrial ecoregion, a hotspot. Now, in addition, we would like to mention the socioeconomic and sociopolitical changes that have taken place in the last 20 years in the country. Government has not only trampled on existing laws, but has also created new laws. However, these are laws which can be considered dead laws because they are not enforced. An example of this is the indigenous populations of the southern Orinoco, the Orinoco Strip, who are now exterminating large amounts of forests through extraction. This is not at all ecological as we're supposed to believe. The most important freshwater rivers are being polluted. part of the indigenous populations are displaced or even assassinated for the only purpose of becoming owners of land. There's lots of injustices that are committed under the complacent gaze of those who should be exercising authority, because there is unfortunately no separation of powers, and bureaucracy makes the initiation disappear over time. There can be judicial action. However, the laws are not observed, respected, or enforced. There are also the oil spills that have taken place, among others, because there are no prepared technicians in the companies working there. And unfortunately, the protocols, the necessary measures are not undertaken to fight oil spills. So, what are the possible solutions? We decided to join our skills in the desire to work in an interdisciplinary team and in the portion of forest existing in the university campus. We saw a means to reach the student population, and from there, the other people around the places to begin working on finding solutions to obtain the tools to be an example to follow. Thus, we are reaching the students and the people around the university nucleus. And as I already said, we have thus been able to find solutions and giving examples that can be followed. And we're starting at the very low level with our teamwork. In a way, in order to create a link between the University of the Andes, Amas de Casa, you know, women at home, you know, science faculties, and others. So how have we done this? Thanks to this Rafael Rangel University Center and the forests there. There's a portion of natural forest which we typify. It is a dry, semi-deciduous forest and deciduous forest. Now, from this was our beginning. From the hydrological point of view, this area actually gives water to 50,000 people, to the university campus, and also to indigenous peoples. We have also seen the importance of the bird fauna. Data, according to Hilti, says that there are lots of species there. If we take into consideration that Trujillo is only 0.8% of the surface, this tells us that it's only a small part of our overall territory. However, Trujillo has lots of species of birds in comparison to the lowlands, the Amazon regions, or other even bigger areas. So this has allowed us, from a pedagogical point of view, to use these forest fragments in our work, the birds, migratory birds, and other presences in a zone which we can use as a biological, bioecological garden where the scientific work can be done, but also cultural work and pedagogical work. Thank you very much for your attention. And we're here for you in the Trujillo region. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Yeliza, very courageous person. We have many projects in common, but particularly the efforts of her community are really valuable. Now we continue with the one blessed are you among all women, Raul Mahmani, an indigenous from the Cola, former global trustee of URI, and first representative of the Quivino URI Cooperation Circle in Jujuy, Argentina. he will be with us, but first we'll listen to his video. My story begins in Muyoyoc, which is a cola community in northern Argentina. We are part of a society that's known as indigenous and has developed for thousands of years in a space that today extends to several Andean countries. Since early childhood, I experienced all the cultural manifestations of my people, and I've always been respectful of my elders' way of living. 1980, already a little older, by my own choice, I moved to Buenos Aires. In the big city, I discovered a very different social reality, not only in terms of physical features, but also in terms of culture. The people who were among my new relationships, when they saw me being different, asked me about the reality of my origin. And this, for me, created the need to know more and understand more about my history and ancestral heritage. My search led me to travel around the Andean world and meet with brothers and sisters who were already on the path to valuing our history and developing as peoples. This task helped me to understand the meaning of all the practices preserved by our people. And it also connected me with the foundations of the life that my grandparents left us. In the Andean world, there's a society known as Tahuantinsuyo, which means the space of the four directions or regions. In this society, it was considered that being connected with all forms of life was essential. And they learned to know and adapt to the phenomena of nature and the cosmos. Well, once I understood the importance of connection as the starting point for achieving well being, I also started looking into other societies around the world. This way, I came to connect with people from other continents who were so different on the outside that they were so equal on the inside. And I thought I had, and that I had been thinking that the only American people were indigenous. Discovered that all over the world there were people who identified themselves in the same way. So another question arose for me: why do we look alike while we are different? And I came to the conclusion that we are connected to life in the same way. For us, nature, Pachamama, is a place where we develop our lives in connection with and respect for all forms of life, regardless of color or shape. In our Andean cultures, we have an essential value known as aini, or reciprocity. In life, we reciprocate with everything and everyone. Reciprocity is based on the action of giving and then receiving. This is how life works, and our grandparents understood it. Today's society is founded on the importance of profit, and ancestral societies are based on existence. The proposition to recover the connection and receive the benefits that nature and the cosmos provide every single second. Differences in skin, religion, cultures, ideologies, and so on only make us look different. But if we look at where we come from, we will understand that we have more things in common. Thanks a lot, Raul, for your testimony on the knowledge of life. I have been knowing Raul for many, many years, and I always enjoyed very much when we have the possibility to work together, while have a coffee together. Well, now it's more an online meeting. Well, we are actually getting to the end of this webinar. I was informed we started late, and so many questions have come in. More than 30 questions have come in. What we can now propose to our audience is that we can send the replies, the answers to your questions. I will be in charge of sending out the questions to the panelists that have been here with us today, and so we can continue this exchange. So we will share the questions with them, and by email, the email addresses that you provided, send out the answers. I don't know if we have time for listening to a healing chant. Do we have time for that? From my wonderful friend, Sophia. I don't know if she's willing to close this webinar with a healing chant. Well, how am I doing? Yes, I'm doing it. Yes, yes. Yeah, I'll do it. This was not planned. It's just occurred to me. This was, as we still owing you the answers to your questions, we will close with a healing chant. I will sing the one that you like so much.
Lo vamos a dejar ahí. Gracias. Es que esta no es mi postura para tocar. Para tocar el cultum. Así que bueno, gracias por querer compartir un poquito del canto que se ha escuchado más.
Our healing chant and letting it reach everywhere where you might need it. It's very important to be aware of the universe because it will help us for many, many things. That's why I always try to use like this kind of chant, like Ninipoi. This is just trying to connect with everything that's around me. Thank you very much. Thank you, my dearest sister. Thanks to everybody for having been with us. And thanks to the regional office to make sure that we could hear each other. Thanks to KAICIID, to Anya and Patrice. Patrice, you can still hear me? Yes, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Also, thanks to KAICIID, to Noé, everybody. I would like to
y a algunos ponentes también.
The speakers, women and one man, for all this valuable information and all this sense that you have given to the importance of understanding better each other and nature. We have to learn together, and that's why I would like to thank everybody. I'd also like to thank URI, particularly my friend Musi, but also the Central University of Venezuela and KAICIID, of course, but particularly Dr. Inoue for this very valuable cooperation, and Anya Biscour from KAICIID. They were in charge of most of the work, and many other people in the three institutions that helped to organize this very important webinar. Stay healthy during this pandemic and other challenges. like climate change that we are facing it all together. Stay well, be happy, and stay with love. Thank you very much.